Hi guys, in this next video I'm going to be talking about Dominic Thiem. If you've been following up to tennis, he's back from injury and he's been playing tennis on a pretty much regular basis, but the matches have not been going very well for him. They have not been going his way so far at all. If you actually look at his start to 2023, he's now 0-4. So if you go back to, I have my computer out next to me. To start the 2023 year, he played his first tournament of the year in Adelaide, lost in first round in qualifying to Soon Woo Kwan, who's a very good player. Ended up winning the championship in Adelaide too the next week. But Dominic Thiem, he didn't lose well, and this is kind of a trend we're seeing for 2023. He's played 4 matches, and in those 4 matches, he's actually lost. He's lost all. Geez, I can't do math. So 6, 9. He's lost all 9 sets he's played so far. Against Soon Woo Kwan, he lost 6-4, 6-1. Against Andrei Rublev in the first round, a really blockbuster first round I was expecting, given Dominic Thiem's track record, his history in Grand Slams, and the great caliber of players that is Dominic Thiem and Andrei Rublev. But that match didn't really live up to its billing, in my opinion. He lost 3-6, 4-6, 2-6 to Andrei Rublev. And while Andrei Rublev is a very good player, I believe he's top 5 in the world now. Yes, just broke the top 5 after the Australian Open. It was not a very good loss. It was not a very competitive loss. It's not like 6-3, 6-4, 6-2. That's not like a match I wouldn't expect anyone in the top 100 to be able to do against a player like Andrei Rublev. So really didn't even give himself what wasn't a very competitive match by any means. And now in the Davis Cup qualifying, it's not directly ATP affiliated. It doesn't affect the rankings, but it's still extremely important to the players, and the matches are very competitive. And once again, he did not deliver and did not play great matches. If you look at his first match, he played against, for those of you that don't know, Borna Gojo, same first name as Borna Koric, but he is the number 2 singles player from Croatia. He's a very good player, and he's getting better. I think he's going to be top 100 in no time, but as it stands right now, he's 121 in the world. So, I mean, that's a solid player, but certainly one where Dominic Thiem, I'm sure would be the favorite, especially considering he's recently broken into the top 100 at 99 in the world. Quick note for this video: when I was searching for Dominic Thiem, I was looking through the rankings, and the first thing I went to was rankings on my computer 100 to 200 because I assumed he was there, but I did not see him. So I found out he recently broke into the top 99. So congratulations to him, but he lost. That's a big milestone. He did just lose to player ranked 121 though in straight sets. Lost the second set in a tiebreaker. So these are just scores. I didn't see the matches. Maybe he played well and Borna Gojo played out of his mind, but as it stands, it's a straight set loss to a player outside the top 100. Then for Davis Cup qualifiers, you play both singles players from the country. His next match was against Borna Koric. Borna Koric is a very good player. Had a great comeback season last year, won comeback player of the year. Played really well in the ATP Cup, I thought. Had a great match against Tsitsipas, but lost first round in the Australian Open to Jiri Lehecka. If I go to that match, Borna Koric won 7-6, 6-2, so I'm sure it was a competitive first set. But in the second set, that's 2 breaks of serves, a 2 break of serve lead for Borna Koric. And I think someone competing to be back in the top 20, back to get to the top of the games, back to the top of the tour, I mean, after losing a first close set, they'd rise up, they'd make some adjustment in their level, they'd make some improvement to make that match a little bit closer. But quite the opposite happened. A 2-break lead for a great player with a great serve with a lot of weapons. That's not a very close loss in the second set. And I'm just saying this having not seen any of the match, but I know to get your serve broken, maybe he broke Borna Koric once, but to have your serve broken 2 more times than another player, if you're a top player, that can't happen. So that is a concerning sign. He even said in the interview after that he was disappointed with the loss and disappointed for the performance, especially given that it was for his country and that he means so much to Austria and he's really such a standout, valuable player to them. And he lost 2 of their 3 matches to give Team Croatia the win. So I'm sure he's extremely disappointed. But basically, he's been injured for a little bit of time. If we go back in his history, I believe it was, yes, 2021, he got injured. So, brief history on Dominic Thiem. 2020 was a fantastic year, by far the best year of his career. I was just recently looking through his results, and they're quite staggering. He made finals of Australian Open, had an extremely good tournament, wins over Taylor Fritz, Gael Monfils, straight sets over Gael Monfils, win against Rafael Nadal, 4 sets in the quarterfinals, win over Alexander Zverev when he was playing very well, 4 sets in the semifinals, and then had a 2-1 lead against Novak Djokovic in the Australian Open finals. Novak Djokovic is undefeated from semifinals to finals, so the fact that Dominic Thiem was that competitive really shows a lot about his level, and I believe that was his 3rd Grand Slam final, so didn't finish out on top. And then COVID happened. It was a weird year, but Dominic's team's level was still quite high, and this was pretty much the peak of his career. Shortly after, they opened up the U.S. Open, so the players were allowed to play it, and no fans. And then, for those of you that recall, Djokovic was playing Pablo Carreno Busta. In frustration, he hit the ball back behind him. A really poor decision, and it cost him big time. He hit the referee in the throat, got disqualified from the match as a heavy favorite. So that left the door wide open for a lot of people. The top 3 contenders at that point were Alexander Zverev, Daniel Medvedev, and Dominic Thiem. So Dominic Thiem had a great tournament, wins over Marin Cilic in the 3rd round, Felix in the 4th round, straight sets over Alex de Minaur in the quarterfinal, and then Daniel Medvedev in the semifinal. At this point, Daniel Medvedev was really coming into his prime. He was probably arguably the second best hardcourt player in the world behind Djokovic. Recently lost the 5-set final to Rafael Nadal at the US Open in 5 sets. Perhaps Daniel Medvedev, if someone had to pick, was the favorite to win the tournament. But Dominic Thiem plays an excellent match, beats Daniel Medvedev in 3 straight sets. And then for those of you that remember, his infamous match against Alexander Zverev, maybe neither of the best level from both of them, but Dominic Thiem goes on to win a really tight, really competitive match where you could just see how much it meant to both players. For Dominic Thiem to come through, that was a really big win for him, and he certainly deserved his first Grand Slam championship, probably more than any other player. And then really at this point, he was on the top of his game, like top of his world. Quarterfinals at Roland Garros. He made the finals of the ATP tournament, beat Tsitsipas, Rafael Nadal, and Novak Djokovic in the tournament. He was really on the top of his game. Lost in 3 very close sets to Daniel Medvedev in the Nido ATP finals. Daniel Medvedev had an insane week, won all 5 of his matches, but clearly Dominic Thiem's level was astounding. So considering Australian Open final, US Open championship, and Nido ATP finals runner-up, it was clearly a fantastic year for 2020 for Dominic Thiem. I don't remember how old he was at this time. Okay, so he's 29 now. I subtract 3 years. Let's say he's 26 years old. Really the prime of his life. Looks like he could probably take over the tour. Nadal and Djokovic are still playing well, but this is very much his time. Then 2021 does not really go as expected for him. He had like a decent Australian Open. For those of you that remember, he had a very close match against Nick Kyrgios. He lost the first 2 sets to him, and he had to serve from love 40 on his service game in the 3rd set against Nick Kyrgios. He gets out of trouble and goes on to win that match in 5 sets. But then he plays against Dimitrov in the 4th round, and he doesn't have a very good match. I believe he got a little bit hurt or a little bit worn down or some signs of injury in that match. Went out in 3 sets pretty quick. Then goes a little bit quiet. Not a lot of very big results for him, for sure. Then first round loss at the French Open to Pablo Andujar. Dominic Thiem had recently gotten a lot better at hard court, but clay court would still probably be considered his best surface. And having lost to Nadal twice in the finals out of Roland Garros, he was clearly one of the favorites going into the tournament. But he has his first round loss there, and then his very next tournament, he has his match against Adrian Mannarino, where he gets his now famous wrist injury, has to take a ton of time off on the tour. but he eventually comes back in 2022, and he's playing again. He's not feeling healthy. He's not playing his best, and he's taking a lot of losses, but he's getting better. He's getting in the right direction. He has a number of losses at first, but then he starts to come into form a little bit. He starts to play a lot better. If I go to some of his matches, looks like he had a good tournament in clay in Bastad, made the quarterfinals, beat Rusevori and Bautista Agut. Now he's starting to get a little bit of momentum, starting to play well. Made semifinals of Gastad in Switzerland, so similar sounding names. Loses in the semifinal to Matteo Berrettini. Starting to play well, starting to play a little bit better. Loses to Jack Draper in a tournament. Gets a tough first round draw against Pablo Carreno Busta and loses in 4 close sets. But he's just getting more matches, getting used to his time on tour. Finals of a challenger tournament. Didn't win the tournament, but he got 5 more matches under his belt, gaining experience, getting used to playing again with the injury. And this is when it really looks like Dominic Thiem is coming back. Like, he is going to quickly reassert himself as a top player. He had I'm trying to find, he had this was kind of when he started to make his breakout back into one of the top players on the tour. He had a great tournament in Antwerp, a loss in a close semifinal match against Sebastian Korda in a 3rd set tiebreaker. If you guys have been with my channel from the beginning, I actually did a match summary of that match where I really thought the level was quite high. Korda was just a little bit better, and obviously Korda was coming. He was clearly a player on the rise. Like, we notice him now that he made finals of Adelaide and quarterfinals of Australian Open, but he was clearly starting to play well coming into that. So he has a close loss to Sebastian Korda there, but his big win there, well, he beats Francisco Cerundolo, who's a good player, but his big win was he beat Hubert Hurkacz in the quarterfinals in 3 incredibly close sets. Now, Dominic Thiem, prior to this time, a lot of his matches he wasn't even very competitive, but this match he was competitive, and rather than losing those close matches coming back into form, he actually won a very close match against a top player. Now, that's just not just about your level. That's about holding nerve. That's about having confidence. That's about believing in your game. And he was able to come through against Hubert Hurkacz. Huge sign. Then probably his best match since his injury, plays Tommy Paul in Vienna. No doubt one of the top matches of the year in his home crowd. First round, really good level for a first round. Luke gets crushed in the first set and wins the next 2 sets very close, 7-6, 7-6. I believe he might have saved some match points in the 3rd set. I'm not 100% sure, but it collapses to the ground after his win in front of his home crowd against Tommy Paul, who really finished off the year very strong. And you think he's having all 3 close matches in a row against Hurkacz, Korda, and Tommy Paul, coming through on 2 of the 3 matches against top players. You really think he's coming to form. He's finding his game again. He's getting his confidence against the top level. And then you think, okay, that's the end of 2022. It looks like he did not play a match in November. So you think, okay, he's a top player. He's finished the year strong. He has confidence. He has November and December to train, but he does not. But then, so you think when 2023 comes, he's really going to be strong. He's going to be a force. And as I went over previously in the video, that has not been the case. 4 matches played, all 9 sets lost. Where has been the level from Dominic Thiem that we expect from him? Why is he not looking like he's contending to be one of the top players, given he's 29 years old, in his prime, and he showed such promise back in 2020 and the years prior to that? Obviously, coming back from injury is really tough, and I will not deny that. I don't pity the players that have to play against a top level, and any time off the court is going to mess up your timing, mess up your feel for the game, mess up your tactics. But clearly, after showing some signs of promise, he is still not quite there yet. He's having some tough losses against people, and maybe this is a little bit unfair for me to say, but I feel like after showing some good signs in 2022, having a 2 months off season to train, do whatever he needs, I had a lot of confidence for his level going into 2023. and he hasn't had the easiest matches for sure. He's played some quality opponents, but the quality and the competitiveness has not been there. Maybe this is still too early to expect things from Dominic Thiem. Maybe it still takes more time to come back from injury than it's currently taking. But I think it's fair to say it's certainly taking him longer than he'd want it to take him. What are some things causing him problems? Well, one with Dominic Thiem, he's a very aggressive player. He likes to hit the ball big. He likes to crush the ball. He rips the ball, play aggressive, go for shots, put opponents under pressure. Sometimes it can be hard to have the trust and the consistency in your game when you're like going for big shots and they're not quite there. You don't quite have the timing and you don't quite have the confidence and the consistency to make your big shots over and over again. To me, he looks like a little bit still uncomfortable on the court. I think this was even when he was playing well, I think this would sometimes hold him back a little bit in matches. I think he sometimes just doesn't fully trust his neutral ball, or he's not like a perfect tactical player. The way a member of a big four is extremely good in their tactics, like when to go cross court, when to go down the line, when to go big, when to go safe, when to play the drop shot, when to come into the net. There's some players that are tactically perfect on that. I feel like Dominic Thiem was never a player who was 100% perfect tactically. I think sometimes he'd make shot selection errors and go for the wrong shot at the wrong time. And that he's a very talented player. He's got a lot of tools, but that can cost you at the highest level. But I think now especially that he's struggling with his timing, struggling with his confidence, making more unforced errors than he can afford to make at this level. I think that little bit of uncomfortableness and indecisiveness on court is really starting to cause him problems. When to go for shots, when to change directions, drop shot, slice, just being comfortable in neutral on court, absorbing pace from your opponent, trusting moving your opponent side to side, going for big shots, but without taking too much risk, being comfortable in offense, like controlled his controlled aggression that has not been there right now, the playing the ball to good targets, to be putting your opponent under pressure, to be comfortable hitting more and more shots just to work the point. That has not been there quite from him like we've seen in 2020. So I'm personally a big fan of Dominic Thiem's game. I think he brings a lot to the tour. He's a fantastic athlete. I think for a time he probably had the best forehand on the tour. He could hit it really heavy, really high with a lot of spin, but he could also hit it flat and bruise it through the opponents with a ton of pace. When he was really hitting out on his forehand, there was no one that could really like hang with it or really can like remain neutral or control it. It was just too big of a weapon. It dominated other players. His backhand is also a fantastic shot. He can hit it flat with so much power. In the US Open final, he got tight and he wasn't using it, and I think that's why he had such a hard time against Zverev. So it's not a shot he has 100% confidence in, but when he does have confidence in, it's an amazing weapon and the highlights are unbelievable. But until he has that confidence, until he has that trust that he can hit it in neutral, that he can hit out on the ball and remain aggressive while also being consistent, kind of in that comfortably aggressive, comfortably offensive phase I've talked about, once he's refamiliarized with being there and just staying in a controlled aggression state, he's not going to have the most confidence with his backhand, not going to have the most confidence with his forehand, and he's going to continue to make errors. Obviously, Dominic Thiem, like you can't really make a lot of unforced errors and be a top player, but with Dominic Thiem's game and strong points in his game, he needs the aggression to be there too. So I think until he can really be aggressive again, dictate play, but without feeling like he's taking risks or could make errors, once he's comfortable being aggressive again, being in that comfortable, like aggressive state, like neutral plus, I guess I'd say, I think he's going to have a hard time returning back to the tour just because there's so many good players on the tour. Everyone's physical, everyone's chasing down balls, everyone's consistent off the forehand and backhand wing. And if Dominic Thiem makes errors, he will not be the person coming out on top in those rallies. So I think he needs to look to keep playing aggressive, keep working his opponent. But he's got to trust his game. He's got to start. He needs to strike the ball clean. He needs to time the ball well. And I think one thing that could help for him right now, keep the pace right now, keep the spin, but just expand the targets. Once you go for big targets and you're hitting them consistently, then you can go a little bit closer to the net, a little bit closer to the lines, start to find ways to pressure your opponent more from there. But yeah, I hope to see him soon. He's playing really well again soon. His start to 2023 has obviously not been very good. But there's a long way to go. We still have all 9 Masters 1000s and 3 Grand Slams. I'd love to see Dominic Thiem start contending against the top 20, top 10 players. He's got a long way to go to get his ranking back up. But if he can just start having quality matches against the top players, unlike his match against Andrei Rublev, that'll be a big step for his confidence and himself rising back towards the top. At the end of 22, we saw glimpses of that. We saw him play great matches against Korda, Hurkacz, and Tommy Paul. I think Korda is not in the top 20, but probably will be. But 3 quality matches against top players. That has not been the case so far in 2023. I'm a little bit surprised after his 2-month offseason. I hope everything's good at the camp. I hope he's in a good mental place. I hope he's feeling confident. But he's got a little bit ways to go. I think for the good of the tour, and as a fan of the sport, and for fans all over the world, we would love to see Dominic Thiem back on top and playing well. I wish him all the best, and thanks for watching my video. Stay tuned for more.